Welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. I am your host, Devon Wieters, and today we have Rhonda Britten on the podcast with us. How are you today, Rhonda?
Oh, I'm excellent. Thank you very much. Nothing better than a beautiful day in Southern California.
Thank you for being here. First of all, tell us about yourself, and then we will get started.
Oh, that's a big question. Tell me about yourself. There's so much. So just my credentials for people that don't know me. I've written 4 books. My number 1 book is Fearless Living. I help people master fear. I've done 600 episodes of television. So I've had 3 reality shows. So maybe you've seen me on TV. Maybe you've seen me reading my books. Maybe you've seen me somewhere. I've been on Oprah a few times. That's all my credentials, blah, 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 blah. There's much more than that. But really, I think the most important thing to know about me is about the worst day of my life, because I think the worst day of your life has the seed of your destiny. And without the worst day of my life, I wouldn't be here. So I would love to share about the worst day of my life, if that's okay with you. But that's the impetus for everything in my life, which, by the way, I would rather not have the worst day of my life, just so you know. But our worst day of our lives, I really believe, do have the seeds of our destiny. And my worst day was when I was 14 years old. I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year, 2 restaurants.
Holy cow, that's an inch right now.
A lot of snow. It snows sometimes it starts in October, sometimes in November. Just this past week, it'll snow to May. When I was visiting a few years ago, I was there in May and it was snowing.
Oh, God. Okay.
Okay, so it can snow from October to May, November to April, but it snows a lot.
Where are you from?
Upper Michigan, a little tiny town called Henson.
That explains it. Okay.
Middle of the Keweenaw Peninsula, the Copper Country. And I grew up there, and my parents were separating, and it was Father's Day. So my father was taking us out to brunch, which was a big deal. And I was in my mom's bedroom, and she's fluffing up her beehive hairdo and putting on her blue eyeshadow and her rose-colored lipstick. And my 2 sisters are fighting it out in the bathroom. And my dad walks in the back door. Come on, girls, let's go, let's go. So me and my mom start walking out. My sister is still fighting it out in the bathroom. And as me and my dad and mom walk out to the car, my dad says he's got to get his coat from the car because now it's started to sprinkle. And as he opens the trunk, out of the corner of my eye, I notice he is not grabbing a coat, but he's grabbing a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, "You made me do this. You made me do this." And he fires. And I start screaming, "Dad, what are you doing, Dad? Stop. What are you doing, Dad?" And he takes the gun, cocks it again, points it at me. And I absolutely think I'm next. And he blinks, I blink, he blinks, I blink. And then my mother, with her last breath, screams out, "No, don't." And my father realizes my mother's still alive and takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that second bullet goes through my mother's abdomen, out her back, lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is, eh.
Oh, my God.
And then my father cocks the gun a third time, puts the gun to his head and fires. And so within 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me.
Wow. Okay.
Not good, right? Not good. And so in that moment, I don't know how anybody else would respond. I don't know how you'd respond, but this is how I responded. I blamed myself because I was the only physically one out there that could have stopped it. And I didn't kick my father's shins. I didn't grab the gun. I didn't jump in front of my mother. I just said, "Stop, Dad, stop." And so I like to think of that day and realize now, as I look in hindsight, that day I basically split into 2 because, by the way, when you watch your mother die, you can't be happy again. So that's up.
Yes. No.
Happy. So in that moment, there became the outside Rhonda and the inside Rhonda. The outside Rhonda, I'm fine, because not only did it snow a lot in Hancock, Michigan, but I grew up Finnish. Finnish people don't feel. We don't talk about feelings. So I was fine. Everything was fine. And inside, though, I had guilt, shame, self-deprecation, hatred because I let my mother die. And so from that moment, over the next 20 years, I started drinking, became an alcoholic, had 3 DUIs, 3 suicide attempts. And it really was that 3rd suicide attempt when I realized something. I realized I am not good at killing myself. And I have Yeah, not good.
No, yeah.
Not good at it.
I never really talked about this before, but I sued up, and by that I took a one skewer and I just drew on myself. I didn't like really cut the surface of the skin, and that was my way of stop harming. I realized I don't get hurt myself because I was too chicken. So there you go.
Thank God for being too chicken. Thank God for that you didn't end up hurting yourself in reality, cutting yourself. So good on being afraid in that moment, right? Because you were in your instincts and survival. So congratulations. And after my third suicide attempt, when I realized I'm not good at killing myself, by the way, when you try to kill yourself, you put you in a psychiatric ward for a few days. And
Yeah.
yeah, and they deemed me not crazy. They let me go. And I went to my little studio apartment and realized that even though those years I was drinking, DUI, and suiciding, I was always also going to therapy and reading books and doing workshops. I was doing everything I could to help myself. And so as I was sitting in my apartment that day, I realized I had a lot of knowledge and I had a lot of tools, but I still fundamentally felt like there was something wrong with me. Like I couldn't get rid of this feeling that there was something fundamentally wrong with me. And so I thought to myself, I've got to start over. I've got to start over. I got to have a clean slate. So I thought to myself, what do kindergartners do when they start school? What do they do? What's the first thing they do? They get a calendar and gold stars. So I went to the store, got a calendar and gold stars, and I gave myself a gold star for the next 30 days for anything I did good. And by the way, I still have this calendar in my office. And I just gave myself any time I did something good. And we're talking about drinking and not getting drunk or getting upset and not breaking anything. But at the end of 30 days, I had a calendar filled with gold stars. And that gave me hope that I could actually change my life. And that was the beginning of an earnest relationship that would eventually unfold and show me how afraid I really was of life and how I was really afraid to be myself. Now, that took a few years to get to that point, but growing up and not feeling afraid, and even after the day they died, if you would have asked me if I was afraid, I would have said no, because I really didn't have any relationship to the words fear or scared. They didn't even resonate with me. So it was only when I started developing a relationship with fear that I was able to change my life and recognize that there is nothing wrong with me. It's just fear.
That is awesome. Okay. How do you overcome that fear? Like, how do you overcome fear?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that same question haunted me, like, how do I move through fear? Because fear is invisible, right? It's like an invisible prison. And fear knows everything. It's as smart as you are, as educated as you are, as knowledgeable as you are, as spiritual as you are. It knows everything you know, and it uses all of it against you. Because fear has one goal and one goal only, is to keep you safe. And it still thinks we're 5 years old or 12 years old. It still thinks we're just young and unable to care for ourselves, unable to protect ourselves. And fear also is committed to keeping us alive, because that's the point. Fear wants to keep us alive. And the body, brain, our neurobiology doesn't know the difference between a physical fear and an emotional fear. So you and I can probably admit our physical fears, but we're not necessarily taught or trained on how to master or understand emotional fears. And emotional fears are what stop us every single day. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of seeing lazy, the fear of loss, the fear of the unknown, the fear of looking like a loser, right? The fear of being incompetent. All those fears are the things that actually influence our life on a day-to-day basis. So in order to change my life, the good news is that I got a download from the big guy, and I was able to create something called the Wheel of Fear and the Wheel of Freedom. And using those two models, those mental models, what it does is, side note, neuroscience says the only way you can truly change your life is to change your perception. And so I was able to, with the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom, you're able to change your perception. You're able to shift it from view and being in the fear versus being in freedom. And so that's what I do today. I teach people how to identify their core fear, and more importantly, how to identify what I call the essential nature to set themselves free.
So how do you do what you just said, identify your fear and
Good question. Good question. One is you can get my book, Fearless Living, and it takes you through the homework exercises for you to uncover your Wheel of Fear, because the Wheel of Fear doesn't want to be known. It doesn't want you to find it. So I develop these exercises to help you uncover what's uncoverable, so to speak. So get the book, do the exercises. Second way to do it is take my Fearless Living Transformation Program on fearlessliving.org. And that program takes you step by step through the exercises. And so it walks you through video and audio and how to do it. And then, of course, the last way is through working with a certified Fearless Living coach. And the exciting part is I'm in the process right now of creating a quiz to help you identify your core fear. So that's going to be coming out pretty soon. So make sure you check my website, fearlessliving.org, because when it's live, it'll be right there on the homepage.
Yes, I will. I'll take that quiz.
Yeah. I mean, because once you understand how fear works, then the game changes.
I have to ask this, and I know people listening might not like Oprah. So if you don't like Oprah, just hit the 2-minute button.
Oprah is fine and dandy. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's done a lot of good in this world. It was an honor to be on her show.
So can you tell us a little about your experience on the show?
Sure. The first time I was on, I know Marianne Williamson, and Oprah is a big fan of Marianne Williamson's, who does the Course in Miracles, and also have now run for president a couple times. And the first time I was on, Marianne used to give lectures every week, and she would sell these cassettes back in the day of her talks. And so I purchased a few brand new talks of Marianne's on cassette and brought them to Oprah. So the first time I was on, Oprah and I actually spent breaks together talking about Course in Miracles and Marianne and the tapes. And so that was delightful. It was I had a lot of personal time with Oprah. By the time I was on the next time, the Oprah show was very different and now was a phenomenon. And so my goal on that show was just to feel equal to Oprah. That was my intention. I am equal to Oprah. And that was the mantra I did every moment of that, before and during the show. And Oprah talked to me on the break. She's like, "You got this. You're gonna solve this issue for us." And I'm like, "Yeah, you bet I'm going to." But yeah, so it's just different because at different levels or at different levels of success, people show up differently. But it was always delightful. She was always good to me, and I enjoyed it every time.
Like, how are her producers? Because I can't imagine pulling something like that off every day. That's crazy.
Producers in the TV world, because I've done over 600 episodes of television. So in the TV world, you have producers per day. So she probably has, she probably has 6 sets of producers or 5 sets of producers, maybe even 8 sets of producers. I don't remember how many there were.
Yeah, but the EPs rotate too, or do they just?
No, they're
just the same.
Yeah, the executive producers usually are, they're the solid ones, but the EPs aren't necessarily in every single moment. Now, don't get me wrong, they are influenced a lot. Like, I think I was in the EP's office a few times that second time I was on to check. She wanted to hear what I was going to do and how I was going to say, and she wanted to know a lot about it. They're really sticklers. So, for instance, before the last time I was on, they interviewed me. They call you up and they interview you, and they ask you all the questions like, "What are you going to say? What are you going to answer?" And by the way, they called me a few times for a few different shows, and they would interview me for those shows. And they're looking for what they want to have the show be about. And then finally, like one of the shows, my answers basically fit into the scheme of what they wanted. And so then they flew me out to Chicago, and there you go. But yeah, the EP, to run a daily show is a grind. It's a hard thing. But Oprah has the reputation of paying people really well.
Yeah.
So
I bet she does.
Yeah, but she wouldn't have to. That's the thing. No.
Yeah.
A lot of reality shows and a lot of talk shows don't pay their people well, but she has a reputation for paying people. I actually have a few friends. When I was on Starting Over, the first season, we were filming in Chicago. And after we left Chicago and started filming the second season in Los Angeles, many of our producers actually went to the Oprah show.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oprah's, again, just another human being. And she gets a fantastic team. And she has high standards, and you just got to meet them.
That's really cool. What other reality shows have you done?
I was the first life coach in the world to be on television to change lives. So I did a show in England called Help Me Rhonda for 2 seasons. It's the first show of its kind in the world. And then when I came back after the second season, they were casting for a show called Starting Over. Starting Over was an NBC daytime reality show, and it was on 5 days a week for 3 years. So I filmed that every day for 3 years, and that was on NBC. So we had 3 million viewers a day. We won Emmys, and it was amazing. And then my third show I did as the coach was Celebrity Fit Club. So then I changed celebrities' lives. So those are the reality shows that I've starred in and have changed lives on. I've done countless. I've done Steve Harvey. I've done Montel. I've done a bit of the Today Show. I've been on the early show. So I've done tons and tons of media, whether that's television, whether that's radio, whether that's magazines, whether that's newspapers. Because I've been on TV and have 4 books, I've done a lot of publicity over the years, and I've done tours across the country and have done book tours across the country and in Europe and in Australia.
Okay. 2 more TV questions, and then we'll get back books, I promise. Uh, how were your experiences with Steve?
Oh, Steve Harvey?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve had me on a bunch of times. So, Steve's great. He was a delightful person. And I also did.
He seems like he's awesome. So.
Yeah, he is. He's wonderful. And I also did he has a conference every year. I don't know if he still has it, but we may or may not. But he used to have a conference every year. And I also was the headliner for his conference after I was on. Yeah, so he was fantastic. And Montel was great. I was on Montel many times. And so, yeah, every TV show I've ever been on, I have nothing bad to say because they were all unique experiences and they were all wanting to support people, their viewers, to change their lives. And that's what I do. And because I have so much media experience, we got along just fine.
Yeah. And another TV question. Have you ever met Jeff Probst, or did you get approached to have a talk show? Did you ever get approached for that?
No, I didn't, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah, because I love Jeff Probst. I've been obsessed with Survivor Jeff Probst since I was like 8 years old.
That was great.
So he used to have a talk show. It only lasted for a year. And I know at this point, whenever I mention this, I try not to mention the talk show. I've never met him, but I've worked with them. But I try not to mention the talk show too much on this podcast because I can just see people going, really? You remember that? Yes, I remember that. And so I wondered.
Well, so there's a different skill set. So being a host on Survivor is very different than being a talk show host. Those are 2 very different skills.
As we were, I'm like, oh, he could have killed it because Jeff Probst is one of the best interviewers. I learned my interview skills from Jeff, literally. And so I'm like, oh, he's gonna kill this. And it just takes. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, because it's very different. So when you're on a talk show, you have to hold it for the whole hour, right? The whole hour or half hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. When you're on Survivor,
yeah,
those little moments are all scripted. And
I think but yes, there is you can edit around Survivor more than you can.
That's right. So a lot of people are good on TV, but they're horrible as a talk show host.
Yeah.
And so that's just a fact. And people have this desire to be a talk show host, but they really don't have the ability to woo an audience, to stay with an audience, to be curious, to have the conversational talent that Oprah has or Montel has or Steve Harvey has in order to keep the audience engaged as well as be able to pull things from the guest. That is a skill. And most people do not have it, even though they think they do. That's why most talk shows get cut the first year.
Yeah. And honestly, I think one of the reasons that got cut is not so much like the interview skills, because it might have been just because it was Jeff and I love him. But I personally love the interviews. He had a lot of people with. I didn't see it all because it was during high school and I was just like so busy. But I didn't see them all, obviously. I didn't see very many of them again because I was like so busy. But he had a lot of people with disabilities on. And I thought that was amazing because people weren't doing that at the time.
Yeah.
And so I guess, but they were doing heavy interviews that they were real. Like he didn't over dramatize it or anything, but people had been through some pretty heavy stuff, and I don't think people wanted to see all that heavy stuff, so they were just like,
Again, who
watching on
knows?
Survivor,
Yeah,
you know?
no. But the point is, he's good at what he does on Survivor,
Yes.
and he tried to branch out, and that didn't work for him right now. It might work
So
familiar, but no.
maybe I hope he at least finds. I hope he does Survivor as well. I don't quit Survivor, Jeff, but I hope he finds the right branch, right? Because I would love to see him like branch out. No, but
I'm sure he does fine.
as well.
Right. So I'm
Yeah,
not really worried about Jeff.
Why not Survivor? So I don't think
I'm not really worried about
it.
him.
Yeah, he did fun. What about you both? So,
What about them? What do you want to know about them?
what are they called? What are they about?
Okay, so my number one book is called Fearless Living. My second book is Change Your Life. It was Fearless Loving, excuse me. So Fearless Living was my number one book. Fearless Loving was my second book. Change Your Life in 30 Days is my third. And Do I Look Fat in This is my fourth. And yes, it's my funniest book. And most people start with Fearless Living because that's where I describe the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom, and where I take you through the entire program of Fearless Living. And also, I talk about the forgiveness exercise that I did with my parents in order to set myself free. So Fearless Living is the heart of my work. And so if you're wondering about how fear works, if you're wondering about, I want to understand how I work, then Fearless Living is the book for you. And then if you are a therapist or a coach or somebody who works with clients and you want more tools in your toolkit, then read Change Your Life in 30 Days because it's 30 days of tools. I give you something to do each and every day. And so I always tell people if they want to change their life today and want an active plan, want an action plan, then do Change Your Life in 30 Days because every single day I'm going to ask you to do something that is going to fundamentally change your life. And then, of course, Fearless Loving is about relationships and self-love. And Do I Look Fat in This is about body and body image. And it's funny because I tell you all my body stories. And those are the three books. And right now I just finished my memoir about my dark night. And I'm also writing, just about to publish 21 Days of Self-Love. It's a book all about love. So that's going to be coming out in the next few months. So be on the lookout for that.
That's awesome. So, okay, I forgot. So, like, about your parents, if you don't mind telling me this, were there any signs that they were gonna do what they did?
You mean what he was going to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We were young. We didn't know any of this. But years later, decades later, people told us that my father was stalking my mother before he killed her. But we didn't know it at the time. We weren't aware of it. But now we know that he was stalking her. And also he had tried to strangle her a little bit before that. And then he strangled me when I was 12. There was
God.
there was definite signs, but back then, and even today, people don't believe that anyone's going to do that.
No.
And my father wasn't comfortable with a gun. He didn't own a gun, or so we thought. He didn't go hunting. He wasn't an outdoor person. So the thought of him having a gun was, no, he's not going to have a gun. So it was just quite shocking for that to happen. And now, of course, in hindsight, when you have hindsight and as I grew and learned about domestic violence and learned about the signs of violence. So for instance, one of the number one thing that happens that you can know if you are about to be potentially murdered is strangling. So if your mate or your partner or your lover tries to strangle you, that is actually the number one sign that the next time they do something, it will be with a gun or a knife or something and kill you. If somebody strangles you, just know that's the number one sign that there's worse coming. And so my mother, he did try to strangle my mother. He did strangle me when I was 12. And we didn't know that back then. Domestic violence didn't even exist back then. Nobody talked about that. Nobody acknowledged it. Nobody paid attention to it. The police would never arrest him because back in that day, you kept to yourself and what happened in somebody's house was none of your business. So again, now with hindsight, and of course, now that now that domestic violence is in the forefront of our culture, which is fantastic, hopefully more and more people are knowing the signs so that they can save themselves and their families if somebody in their household becomes violent. But again, it's scary because I specialize in fear, and I can look at my father and I can see that my father killed my mother out of fear. right? The words he used, this is your fault, this is your fault. He blamed my mother for divorcing him. My father blamed my mother for his state of mind. And so he decided that it's her fault, and therefore he had to get rid of her because he couldn't get rid of her any other way but killing her. So my father, out of his own inability to understand his emotional life, he had no ability to soothe himself. He had no ability to stop the thinking thoughts, right? He had no ability to stop the negative self-talk. He didn't know how to manage his emotional life. So the only way he'd get rid of that voice in his head, the only way he'd get rid of the feelings he had, the shame, the embarrassment from my mother leaving him, was killing her. And then my mother also stayed with my father. Even after he tried to strangle her, she stayed with him for a while. After he strangled me, she stayed with him for a while. So my mother also, again, back in the day, didn't understand what was happening, didn't know the violence might be getting worse. She didn't know. And again, most people don't know. So it's really important that we are attentive and become masterful with our own emotional life, because the more you understand how you work and you are able to take back your power and know how to process emotions that are difficult, know how to process shame, know how to process embarrassment, know how to process vulnerability and humility and humiliation, right? The more you understand those feelings and you can live with them, the less you're going to react, the less you are going to act out, the less you are going to hurt yourself and others. So we all, every human being on the planet, one of the goals, if you want to become more evolved and want to become more awake and want to have more sovereignty over yourself, want to have more agency over yourself, is to become more emotionally awake. And so my father didn't do that. My mother didn't do that. That wasn't part of the culture back then, but still too many people, even though self-help and personal development and spiritual work is more known in our society now, it's still not known enough, right? It's still not known enough. And people don't know how much fear takes their life, makes their decisions for them, makes them overthink, procrastinate, people please, get overwhelmed, judge, compare, manipulate, right? They don't think that those are the problems. They don't think that fear is the problem. They think I got to quit judging, or I got to quit procrastinating, or I got to quit people pleasing. And they think those are the problems. But those are simply fear responses. And so when you find yourself procrastinating, instead of saying, what's wrong with me? I'm procrastinating. Why am I doing this? Say, this is a fear response. Oh, I'm having a fear response. Next time you act out, this is a fear response. And then start, as I say, go back to what I call the core fear, the core trigger, and start recognizing that was just activated and you are doing fear responses fear is trying to give you fear responses so that it'll keep you safe. But the problem is when you act out of fear, it's always about keeping you stuck, safe, and small. It doesn't want you to grow. It doesn't want you to be happy. Fear could care less if you live your purpose. Fear could care less if you're happy. Fear only cares that you are alive. So you have to care more about your purpose. You have to care more about living a life that your soul intended. You have to care about that because fear doesn't. So fear's job is to stop you from doing anything stretch, risk, or die, taking a stretch, risk, or die in your life. And that's what fear wants to do. But you, in order to have agency, sovereignty, and live the life your soul intended, must take stretch, risk, and dies, must go outside your comfort zone. So fear has the direct opposite intention to what we must do if we want to have more meaning, more purpose, more sovereignty over our lives and ourselves.
That is awesome. Anything else you want to add before we get off here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I want to give a free gift. Go over to fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/RISK. Go over there, put your name, your email in, and I'm giving you access to one of my clients' favorite tools, favorite things they use on a regular basis. It's called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And it will show you how to build momentum. It will show you how to move towards your dreams and goals. It will show you how fear is working. And it's 3 15-minute videos, so it's super easy. You can do audio, you can do video, you can do the transcript, whatever serves you best. And then what you'll see in the third video, again, they're 3 15-minute videos. In the end of the third video, you're going to see me work fear. You're going to see me draw out the wheel of fear and show you my wheel of fear so that you can start identifying and understanding your wheel of fear better. So go to fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK. And then lastly, this is what I want you to take in and own. I want it to melt into your soul are the following words. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. So go to fearlessliving.org/risk, R-I-S-K, and grab that course.
That is awesome. Where can people follow you on social media?
allrhondabritton.com, RHONDABRITTEN, Rhonda Britten. All social media, Rhonda Britten.
That is awesome. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, hit the bell if you're on YouTube or Spotify. Leave us a rating and a review, and we will see you guys next episode. Bye, guys. Wait.